Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on when you see this. My name is CyberSpesh, Mr. Robert J. Speciale, here from the Zero X feed as we begin our quest to master all the units and all the topics here in AP Cybersecurity. We're going to go through Unit 1, Topic 1.1, as soon as I can find my keyboard here. I'm on the wrong screen. You know what? I'm going to leave that mistake in there because I want you to know I'm a human being. I'm not a bot. I'm not an AI. I'm going to make about 40,000 mistakes in this video, but you know what? That means it's authentic. And I think that's one of the most important connections you can ever have with someone who's trying to teach you or show you something, is to make that connection authentic. So I'm not a bot. I am not an AI. I am not, anything else except a human being making a lot of mistakes while I'm sitting here doing this. So let's go on. Yes, AP Cybersecurity. Unit 1, Topic 1.1, and we are going to talk about social engineering and why human beings are literally the biggest threat to protecting data, right? And I think that's something of a bit of a takeaway and a little sneak peek as to what we're going to be talking about here. But before we go down social engineering, there are a couple of baseline topics that I need you all to understand. I'm going to move myself on the screen here a little bit too. So, a couple of topics I want you to understand here. One of the foundational things about cybersecurity, when you learn it, that I teach in my CT cyber program, is the CIA triad. All data, or what you need to do with data, is defined by these three items that are here: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is where you have to decide who could see what data, who has access to a certain piece of data, right? Or as they write it there, data that is not revealed to anyone except those who are authorized. And the goal is to prevent unauthorized exposure, right? So if you are the CEO of a company and you have the blueprints to a new product, well, maybe the HR department doesn't need to have access to that, but your system engineers do. So you want to make those settings accordingly in your systems to provide that level of confidentiality. Then you have integrity, and this is one that trips up my students a lot. This does not mean integrity like your data has good moral values and will return to you $1 if it falls out of your pocket type of integrity. The definition is data that remains whole, uncorrupted, and unchanged. When you see a stock data, right, you're looking at stocks and bonds and mutual funds, and you go to a website and you get that data, there has to be a level of integrity in that data to know that it is accurate. Okay, that would be one example of that. Data that remains whole, uncorrupted, and unchanged. Another way to describe it would be data is exactly as it was intended by the creators of that data, right, to ensure accuracy. If you make this whole big spreadsheet, like I used to coach baseball, right? So I would have a spreadsheet of all the players' statistics, the batting average and OPS and walks and hits and strikeouts and all that other fun stuff. Well, I would use that data to make decisions. So I constantly had to make sure that the integrity of that data was whole, uncorrupted, and unchanged. It also had to be correct. You know, I can't sit there and say little Johnny had 10 strikeouts when he only had 3. So I had to make sure it was accurate. So that's integrity. And then the last one on this list is availability. Is the data available at times, at places, and in manners that is consistent with what the business needs? Amazon.com, their data has to be available 24 hours a day. You may have some piece of data that's only available at certain times. Think about like when you are in a class at Canvas, for those that are high school students and maybe even some college students. When you have an assignment in Canvas and the teacher locks it, it's available to a certain time, but then the teacher locks that after a certain date and is no longer accepting work. That would be an example of availability. So the data is accessible precisely when needed. A lot of e-commerce and a lot of businesses, that means 24 hours a day. However, depending on what business you work for or depending on what business you set up, like if you're an entrepreneur, you may have different goals and different things with that. So that's the CIA triad. Very important, very foundational. You have to know this stuff, okay? And understanding, and we're going to get to social engineering and everything that actually is in Unit 1, Topic 1.1, but this is a little foundational. You need to have this lens to then understand why social engineering works the way it does. I'm just going to breeze through this real quick. There's a couple of examples of, I don't know where's a good spot to put my head in this. How about there? Okay. So when a triad fails, right, you have a loss of integrity. The Stuxworm virus from 2014 is an example of that. Loss of confidentiality. We had the internal contractor for the NSA, Edward Snowden, who's rather famous on the internet, and then loss of availability. Anytime you have a big DDoS attack, and that particular one was 2016. You can go look at those articles on your own. If you want to pause the video, go do that or whatever. But those are examples of when the CIA triad fails. So keep having a look where my buttons are. The second piece of information, we're going to move me again, that is really important to understand the social engineering piece that we have to learn is the different states of data. Data can be in 3 states. Data is at rest, where it's just sitting on your hard drive unused. It exists in a folder. It exists as a file. It just exists. And it's sitting in your hard drive not doing anything, or sitting on a thumb drive, or sitting on an external hard drive. It's data at rest. Data in transmission, or data in transit rather, is when data is traveling from one place to another. You send an email, you're sharing a file, and you're sending it to Google Drive or through FTP, things of that nature. That's data in transit, and then the last one is data in use. So information is currently being used by a CPU or is loaded into random access memory. You can really understand this if you're more of a hardware person. If you have no computing background whatsoever, the best way to describe it, especially since this is designed for high school kids, when you're playing a video game, if you're playing Valorant, Overwatch, Fortnite, or whatever, and you launch that, popular way to launch video games would be in Steam, right? So you double-click Steam and you hit play. The files that your computer needs to run your game, while you're playing your game, those files are in use. And when you exit the game, those files then get stored again on the hard drive. So your Fortnite.exe or whatever is at rest until you launch it, and then Fortnite is running. Okay? And that would be an example of data in use. That's why, like, if you have a Word document open and you try and rename the file, it doesn't let you because the document is in use. It's the computer's running it at that time. So you have to actually save it, close it, and then you can right-click it in Windows, is what I'm using as an example, and then you can reName it. So the 3 states of data. You have to commit the CIA triad and the 3 states of data to your memory. Now I'm going to move myself up here. I'm going to be doing this a lot in this video. So the complete matrix there, I'm not going to go into it, but if you want to take a pause and just kind of read through this real quick, it's how confidentiality works during the different states of data. So if you want to enforce confidentiality on a data that is at rest, you might want to consider doing full disk encryption. If you want to apply availability to data that's in transit, then maybe you want to have a redundant network so that we can always ensure that that data makes it from the sender to the receiver. So this is a little bit of a matrix that just kind of shows all that. And yeah, there's really not much more to say about that. Like I said, pause the video at any time that you think I might be going too fast. So just kind of read through the stuff in the slides and everything as well. I would actually highly recommend that. Move myself there. So when you take a look at the whole big approach here, protection really equals prevention plus detection plus response. And we'll get into this in a later chapter when we talk about the complete like cybersecurity life cycle, which is this is what this is alluding to, where you want to prevent an attack by being prepared. You want to detect when an attack is happening or has happened, and then you want to develop a response. And there's a couple other stages that go through that, and we'll do that in a later class. But it's important to kind of know how these things all kind of match together. The CIA triad, along with the states of data, create a continuous loop that has to be maintained without question in the world of cybersecurity. Now, let's get to what we really need to talk about. I'm going to move myself right there. It looks like a good spot. Okay. Is human vulnerability. Corporations around the world spend billions on securing technology, whether it is using advanced encryption, multi-factor authentication, zero trust architecture, all kinds of terms. Maybe you know what some of them mean, maybe you don't. That's fine. You're going to understand them by the time you're done with this class. But in the end of the day, Adversaries know it is way easier to manipulate a human being. Human beings are always the weakest link in any cybersecurity exchange. When you talk about data, whether it's at rest, in transit, whatever, the CIA triad, you can loop all that around and you can talk about all the greatest technology. You can talk about AI and how AI makes all this stuff better and faster. In the end of the day, nothing is more powerful in cybersecurity than the psychological tactics that are used to manipulate users to give up sensitive information. Okay? Humans are always the weakest link. It's as simple as that. And that's what this graphic is trying to say to you. And it says that the definition of social engineering are attacks that employ psychological tactics that manipulate users into revealing sensitive information, downloading malicious files, or clicking malicious links to do the first two. Okay? So you take a look at this email, right? There's no good spot for me. It says detecting phishing. I'm going to move myself back. You take a look at this email, right? You're sitting next to your teacher when they receive this following email. They want to click the link, but they suspect that they're behind my head while I'm making the video. But you suspect it's not legitimate, right? How would you know that this email is not legitimate, right? Pause the video. Look and see if there's any evidence and find out whether anything in this email looks bad to you or what you could highlight as potentially bad. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is, but it's something that you have to review and something that you have to be aware of. So when you're done pausing the video, you go to the next slide here. Mismatch sender. It says from the IT help desk, but the email is from admin@secureupdateportal88.com. No one's going to name their help desk email that. Typically, it's going to be helpdesk at your organizational email. If I worked for widgets.com, it's probably going to be helpdesk@widgets.com or ithelpdesk@widgets.com or something along those lines. So if it says it's from one person, but the email doesn't match who it's coming from, that's a problem. Generic target. There's no dear whoever your name is. A company that's looking to do business is going to know your name. If you're getting an email from a banking institution, they're going to put your name in the email, not just be generic. And urgent, it's psychological manipulation. Your staff portal account will be suspended in 2 hours due to unauthorized access. You know, someone will see that and go, oh my God, I don't want to lose access. What do I need to do? Oh, click here to verify your identity. And that's where the hidden payload is. I can't show you in this PowerPoint, but if you take your mouse, right? My mouse is on the screen there, and you usually hover over an actual link, it will show you the URL or the website that link is pointing to. A lot of times that website is going to look buck wild. It's going to be like random letters and characters. It'll be some website that's hosted in Russia or something crazy like that, that you know full well that is not a legitimate link. But you know what? Some people will read that email. They'll get a sense of urgency. They might not be technologically savvy and just like auto-click the link. And then you go to a link that might look like a real website, might look like someplace where you got to go, and put in their real credentials. Now the hackers have your real credentials for the real site. An example would be if you click that link, say this is from Bank of America. You click that link, it might bring you to a website that looks like Bank of America. Maybe the colors are slightly off, but you can't tell. Your adrenaline's already flowing. You might have a little bit of an elevated response because of the email, and you put in your real Bank of America username and password in there. Bad move. And now the hackers have your real credentials, and they're going to pilfer your bank accounts and whatever else you can do from that. So those are the things you need to look for as some of the examples, okay? Mismatch sender, generic target, hidden payload, psychological manipulation. One that's not on this slide, but I think is another thing to look out too, would be bad spelling. A lot of times you will have foreign threat actors, foreign as compared to where you're from, threat actors, that could be anybody from any country, that are not writing an email in their native language and then they put it through like Google Translate or something and it comes out reading weird. Like, hello, my sir, you know, and that's not really a legit greeting in English, for instance. So you got to watch out for that too. So let me move my head again a little bit. You see, I can live there. How tactics bypass the logic firewall. So just as like what I'm explaining, I'm not going to belabor this too much. You get the incoming message. If it's just a regular email, you have a measured response. But the psychological tactics that create urgency and intimidation force a person to inadvertently have an emotional response, and then they take impulsive action. Now, I don't want to disparage anyone listening to this that has family members that are car salesmen or work in the car industry, but I will tell you definitively that this is a tactic that car salespeople do. Oh, you want this 2026 BMW? Oh, that's great, but you know what? I have 5 people in here already looking at the car. I would tell you this car's not going to be on the lot for the next hour. You're going to have to make a decision now. And if you fall in love with that car, you're going to make a snap decision. And that's what the salespeople are hoping that you do. There's a lot of similarities between sales tactics and this kind of stuff. And that's what we discuss in my class in person when I teach this. So if you want to look up sales tactics and use that as a little bit of a guide as you're learning this stuff, I will tell you right now that this and social engineering have a lot in common. And look at the little blurb on this. That's the slide here. Social engineering relies on psychological principles to prevent targets from taking the time to consider whether an action is safe. So another little matrix here. I don't know where to go now. I'll put myself up there maybe. Okay. This is just another matrix. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if the tactic is urgency, it's trying to create pressure and panic and leverage the human being on the other end to react because there's a time-sensitive thing going on now. And then you have intimidation that generates fear. People don't like having fear. People don't like negative consequences, even if they're minor ones. They don't like negative ones. So they want to take action to eliminate that fear. And that's what these things are designed to do. Threat vectors, when or where attacks can happen. Phishing is the email one that we're talking about. That's the most common vector. People, threat actors, will even buy time on a botnet, and don't worry about if you don't know what that is. Once again, that will be coming in the future. A botnet is basically like a whole bunch of computers that have the same virus, so it's host thing on it that will act in unison so that you have 100,000 computers on a botnet able to send messages out really quickly. So what that does is it allows the threat actor to send phishing emails to large batches of people. Okay? You have direct messaging, which is like, text message, DMs, like on Instagram, or if you play video games, like your in-game chat, like on Call of Duty or Rainbow Six Siege, or stuff like that. You have smishing, which I really, really, really do not like that term, but it's when you get SMS text-based, when you just get the random text message. I just got one the other day. It's the post office. You didn't pick up your package. You're going to lose it in 2 days if you don't click this link and verify your, whatever they're asking for, and you just delete it and block it and call it a day. And then, of course, you have physical breaches. Physical breaches are when tailgating through secure doors, for instance. So say you have an ID, like on a picture in the slide here, right? You have a legitimate ID, and someone kind of piggybacks right behind you and sneaks in as you're accessing an area that you have legitimate access to, but this person who snuck in did not. So that's tailgating. Another word for it would be piggybacking. You can also have a physical breach could be caused by someone has a UPS uniform, but they're not really with UPS, and they might have stolen it and made a fake ID, or it stole the other UPS person's ID and made a fake ID out of it with switching their picture out. And now they get in to access the building in certain areas. They might not be able to access the whole building, but they can still get in. So that would be something to look out for. Let me see the next slide. They don't talk about it. Let me go back a slide for a second. Hold on. Because one thing that I forgot to put in this slide here, and I think it's something to discuss, there are other types of threat vectors that are not on this slide that I would entertain you to take a look at. You have phishing is where they send out the way the economy of this stuff works is that a threat actor will send out 100,000 emails. And even if they only get 2 or 3 people to reply, then they make money. Okay, because it really doesn't cost them to send anything really to send 100,000 emails out, in comparison to the potential of $1,000 in return to get the people on the other end to do what they want to do. A type of phishing that goes after like CEOs, CIOs, or whatever, would be called whaling, where you're going after the big fish, right? And that's why it's called whaling, right? So you're trying to send a malicious phishing email, but you're sending it to Elon Musk, or you're sending it to Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, right? Or Tim Cook, the now retired, or now he's no longer the CEO, as I make this video, of Apple. But you're going after the big shot, right? Spear phishing would be phishing emails that are targeting one individual for whatever reason. So if I was the only target of a bunch of phishing emails, that would be called spear phishing. And look at the image, right? What did people around the globe 100,000 years ago, how did they catch fish? Spear, into the water, right? That's what the image is supposed to invoke. So you do have some other types of threat vectors here. I believe they're mentioned in other chapters within Unit 1, but I felt it incumbent upon me to just kind of give you those quick definitions because they do kind of fall in this phishing category. And of course, you can whale phish using text messages and using DMs and even physical breaches where you can get at a CEO's laptop if they don't have good security in the building. So what's the impact, the consequences of an attack, right? You have elicitation. You have a threat actor is using all these other tactics to try and get this information from people. And there's way more to social engineering that we've even discussed that's within later chapters of Unit 1 in the AP exam. This is just the introductory part, right? But however they do it, the target is manipulated into revealing some type of personal and secure information. Let's just say someone intimidates me and I'm working at the office. They're like, hey, look, I need you to use a name and password. It was apparently compromised, and is within the next 2 hours, I have to log in and change all these files, or else I know you're leaving for work here in a minute. So I'm just going to log in as you. And meanwhile, now they have my username and password, and with that authentication bypass, now my account is compromised. And a lot of times, what hackers will do, and something you will learn as you travel further into this class. Once a threat actor gets access to a system, the first thing they're going to try and do is elevate their privileges so that they can be an admin. And once they have administrative privileges on a system in a network, it gives them a wide variety of abilities to really get at and do damage to a company or to a person. Once again, all this stuff is completely applicable to a person just sitting at home and getting at your computer system. But in the context of what we're doing, a lot of times we're talking about working in business and working for companies. Even if it's your own company and you're an entrepreneur, these are the things that you have to kind of look at and pay attention to. What's a good place for me to be here? You know what? I'm going to hide right there. Just note that says personal information. So, when elicitation happens, when they get sensitive information, what do they want? They're looking for name, phone number, address, pet names, birth dates, anything that reveals something about you, okay, that they're trying to get that information. Why? Because typically you're going to use challenge questions when you set up a password, and a lot of times it's going to be what's your dog's name, what's your mother's maiden name, what is your hometown, where were you born, what's your brother's name, stuff like that. If a hacker, I should stop using hacker because really if a threat actor, hacker is just a type of threat actor really when you look at that. And that's once again in a later chapter. When you are a threat actor, those pieces of information can help you do a bunch of things. One, it might give you information to crack someone's password or give you information to know that would be that person's challenge questions to reset their password and then make it something that you would lock the original user out, and now you're logging in as them. So all that personal information, and side note too, I worked in sales a long time ago when I was much younger. I will tell you that this is, again, another sales tactic. If I'm walking in and I have an appointment with somebody, first thing I would do is when I walk into their office or their conference room, look around. What pictures do they have on their desk? What things are on the wall behind their desk? If I notice they got a golf photo, oh, you're into golf. I like golf. What do you do? Where do you play? Who's your favorite golfer? What kind of clubs you swing? If I see pictures of bowling, I love bowling. Hey, bowling, look at this. I used to bowl all the time. My high score is a 272. I made the 7-10 split. How about you? Where did you bowl? Now you create a layer of commonality, and it makes your interview with that person be a little softer. Well, that's what threat actors are doing. They're doing the same thing, so you got to really pick up on that. How do you secure your data from people doing that? This is just one example, but one thing you can do, set up one-time passwords. multi-factor authentication. There are other things as we learn the more techie stuff. I don't want to get into that too much now, but you want to make it so that the threat actor has to spend time. The longer time it takes a threat actor to get at an account or a system, the greater chance they can either get caught or give up because it's actually too difficult, or it will take too much time for them to do what they need to do. That's what you're looking to do. You're never going to stop a threat actor. But what you can do is slow them down so much that it makes it not in their best interest to continue, right? So if you're trying to secure a password in this particular example, you want to have multi-factor authentication. You can set up things where a password will lock out the account after 3 attempts, things like that you'll learn about as we go on. But in a general sense, you want to put some roadblocks from this person here. Let's go there this time. So the payload drop, when the target clicks, if you have a phishing email that has that malicious link, I already described this, it's going to have that fake login site. It's going to look like it's really good, but it's spoofed, meaning it looks like Bank of America, it looks like Amazon, it looks like whatever it is that they're doing. A lot of times it's going to look like banking sites, credit card sites, Wells Fargo, whatever. And you'll have a fake login site. You're going to think it's real, especially if you're under pressure and that target threat actor has succeeded in a phishing email. Then you put your creds in there, and now it could kick off a whole lot of things. If you give up your real creds, now they have your real credentials, and they can just log in as you in your bank site and drain your bank account, spend on your credit card, buy a whole bunch of flat panel TVs from Best Buy or something. And then you're going to have to dispute that credit. Now you have some compromised data on your credit report. You could click that link and it might have a malicious download, as it says in the image there, right? Where you click that link and then it says, okay, give us your creds and we're going to download a file to protect you so this doesn't happen the next time. And a lot of people will sit there and go, oh, okay, I don't want to not be protected. Well, that file is an actual virus. And that might kick off a whole different type of, there's a whole chapter on malware, so I'm not going to go down that road. But malware can be a ransomware package where now the malicious download locks in for your files, and now your threat actor's like, okay, well, I'll unlock your files, but you got to pay me in, half a Bitcoin, or something like that, or make a wire transfer for $1,000 or something. So this is a real bad thing when it happens, and it still happens to modern age, and it happens to CEOs, and it happens to everybody beneath them. No one is above. When I tell you, human beings are the biggest threat to cybersecurity, and it doesn't matter how intelligent you may think you are, how many degrees you might have, or how well you know your business, or anyone else in your organization. As you progress in your IT career, you're going to see that this can happen to anybody. Even me, although it really hasn't happened to me too often. But that's because I understand this stuff. And that's what I hope you take in this class. Even if you don't go into a career in IT, it's going to make you all the more knowledgeable, so that if you take AP Cybersecurity, you go to college, and say you want to be a lawyer, say you want to go into business and marketing and all that, you're going to start your own company or work for a company, you're going to understand how this stuff works and have a leg up on the people around you. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about this topic. So this is how this whole cycle works. I don't think there's even a good place for me to go in here. Well, you know what? We're going to go up there. Human vulnerability added with threat vectors equals organizational risk. That's why one of the biggest things companies can do is training. Train the humans to not get triggered by urgency and intimidation and scarcity and all the fun things that happen with this stuff. If you do the proper training, you can reduce these things. Proper training added with the right technology can minimize this. You're never going to get rid of it entirely. That, I think, is impossible, but you can minimize this. Some of you may see this and go, but what about AI? Isn't AI supposed to make these things better? Yeah, the threat actors are using AI as well. If anything, threat actors are going to make AI make better phishing emails that will be much harder to detect. So even more why human beings need to have better training about this stuff. But we're also going to be using AI in our devices and our technology to protect against that and scan emails. It's one of those things. I don't know if anybody would know this reference, but when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, you had a thing called mutual assured destruction. Here in the United States, you had the Soviet Union has nuclear weapons. The United States has more, and then they have more, and ours are better, then they get better. So it's this cycle that never ends, right? That's the same thing with threat actors and those that are the white hats, the protectors, right? Hackers find a way, threat actors find a way to crack a system one way, we protect it, and then find a way to stop them. Then they find another way, we find a way to stop them, and it just keeps escalating that way, right? But you're never going to stop it entirely. Never going to stop it entirely. So, and this little sentence that I put on this thing here is very accurate. Cybersecurity is not just about patching software and doing techie stuff. It requires patching human vulnerability through awareness, training, as well as analytical detection. Okay? So try and keep that in mind. And ladies and gentlemen, we have made it through our first video here on Unit 1, Topic 1.1. I thank you for your time if you made it to the end. Our Instagram feed is 0x_feed. Our YouTube channel, obviously you found it, but it is youtube.com/ I think it's 0x feed. I might have made a mistake with the @ symbol, but you're on YouTube watching this, so I might, I can't edit this out now. We're going to leave it, and I'll just fix it for the next video. That's fine. I'm going to put links in the comments below to everything anyway. But obviously, you're watching this on YouTube, so you found it, so that's good. And for anyone that is teachers and educators that are on this feed, I will also put the link to the Teachers Pay Teachers store. It's not very pretty in this link, so I need to come up with a better way to advertise that. But I did start a Teachers Pay Teachers account, and in the store, as of the recording of this video, which is on May 3rd, I have Units 1 and Units 2 uploaded on the Teachers Pay Teachers account. I don't want to go too much in it here because this playlist is going to be for kids and going to be for students. However, if you are a teacher and found that, go to Teachers Pay Teachers, search for 0x feed, or if I think you search for AP Cybersecurity and dig around a little bit, you'll find me because I'm relatively new. I don't have a lot of purchases yet. I hope that changes here over time. But go check out my materials. My lessons in there have lesson plans, worksheets, a content explainer, PowerPoint presentation, some of which I pulled for this one, a companion guide to go with the PowerPoint, exam with answer key, quiz with answer key. A lot of fun stuff in there. So please check it out. And if you find it of value, if you think you may find it of value and test it out, then buy the rest because I put a lot of work into it and my heart into it. So that's it for Unit 1, Topic 1.1. I'm going to make another video that I think will be for teachers, just to advertise the Teachers Pay Teachers thing now that I'm thinking about it. But like I said, I'm genuine. Like I kind of like randomly talk. My students accuse me of going off the rails a lot, and I have no doubt some of my YouTube videos will do the same, but at least you know they're authentic. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. I hope you found value in this video. If you did, please subscribe and like and spread the word that this is going to be the place to be if you want to learn some of the important concepts for AP Cybersecurity. Until then, good night. Take care, and I'll catch you later.